Have you ever wondered who holds law enforcement accountable if your property or you are damaged while attempting to apprehend a suspect? Many people have seen it on the news where law enforcement gets it wrong and accidentally kicks in the wrong door or mistakes a suspect while we think that they would obviously pay for the damages. Many times this isn't the case. Law enforcement is granted with many policies that allow them to do their jobs with little fear of retribution. Probably the biggest protection would be qualified immunity. Qualified immunity shields government officials from being sued civilly, not just over property damage, but even harming law-abiding citizens while performing their duties. While researching more into qualified immunity, I found 3 cases that stood out, including Corbett versus Vickers, Baxter versus Bracey, and Tolan versus Cotton, which clearly showed the power imbalances between law enforcement and the held accountability. Let's start with the history of qualified immunity. Since its inception during the 1967 court case, Pearson versus Ray, qualified immunity was, as we viewed it, a shield for government officials protecting them from frivolous lawsuits, but has since been weaponized to shield them from egregious acts of abuse on communities they're sworn to protect. While anyone is allowed to bring a lawsuit against anyone for just about anything, securing a positive judgment is a much more difficult task, especially when it comes to a lawsuit against a law enforcement officer. Bringing a lawsuit against a law enforcement officer is nothing but an uphill battle, because you must prove that the officer had violated your clearly established rights. What are clearly established rights? Clearly established rights are rights that have been proven in a past case and had received a judgment in favor of that right. Without this, the judge will almost immediately dismiss your lawsuit. Even with the violation of your rights and proof of it, it's still not a slam dunk case. Because the officer was performing their duties in good faith, the judge may still grant them immunity. It was during Harlow versus Fitzgerald that qualified immunity as we view it today was established. This case arose from Fitzgerald testifying before the Subcommittee of Economy about the C-5A cargo plane going $2 billion over budget. Just shy of a year later, Fitzgerald was fired for what he felt was his testimony. He then brought a civil suit for wrongful termination against presidential aides that had fired him. While at first the district court found both Harlow and Butterfield were not shielded by qualified immunity, they brought it all the way up to the Supreme Court, and with an 8-1 judgment, the courts ruled that qualified immunity had to be upheld for government officials to do their jobs without fear of retribution for frivolous lawsuits. Seeing all the harm caused by these policies leaves you wondering whether or not anything can be done to hold them accountable. The Supreme Court has made it clear they are taking a step back and allowing Congress to reform the policy if they see fit. This leads to the question about what about all the cases the court is declining to hear. One prominent case the court has declined to hear was filed by Willie Gibbons' mom, claiming Officer Noah Bartlett used excessive force when he shot and killed her schizophrenic son, who at the time was holding a firearm to his own head. In 2017, a district court sided with her, which was later reversed by the Court of Appeals for the Third Circuit Court. Gibbons appealed the ruling, but the Supreme Court denied hearing the case. There are many more like her, including Mary Stewart, mother of Luke Stewart, and Chase House. While the Supreme Court decided to sit back and wait, a few states have kickstarted a reform movement. Colorado enacted a new civil action for deprivation of rights law, allowing citizens to sue law enforcement in the state court. Following Colorado, New Mexico enacted the State Civil Rights Act, which eliminated qualified immunity as a defense in state claims for government officials. These are just to name a couple. Many more states like Connecticut and Massachusetts and even New York City has introduced new legislation making it harder for for these criminals to hide behind a widely misused policy. While at the core basis for which qualified immunity was created, it's great because it allows for law enforcement to complete their duties without fear of frivolous lawsuits bankrupting them. It's the flip side of the coin that hurts law-abiding citizens the most, requiring that citizens filing the lawsuit find and cite a past trial where almost all the facts are identical. Even looking at the case, police are supposed to be our everyday heroes. And many officers try their best every day to uphold the oath to protect and serve. But there are always those bad apples who choose to hide behind the privileges of having a badge. Sidney Harris said it best in his famous quote, "History repeats itself, but in such a cunning disguise that we never detect a resemblance until the damage is done." But how many times does qualified immunity have to be abused to harm law-abiding citizens before true reform takes place? Thank you.